Uh, Good afternoon. We're going to talk about the foreign relations between Mexico and Ecuador. We are Fernando Chorecharte and Pablo Rodriguez, and let's get started and know more about these two countries. Let's start with the historical background. Um, Mexico and Ecuador have a relationship based on mutual respect, economic potential, and shared this identity of being a Latin American country. We all share. Well, Ecuador and Mexico started relations in 1830 with diplomatic ties established when Ecuador gained its independence from the Gran Colombia. This was a country that used to be from Spain. It independence they had their independence, and now Ecuador independs from the independent country. So yeah, in the 20th century, we have corporations that are more solid through regional initiatives. Like for example, we have an agreement. No, we're on an agreement called the Rio Group, which we share with Ecuador. Uh, and recently, the we have strengthened alliances to address migration, trade, and regional development, finding a peaceful solution to their most recent conflict. Peaceful, but I mean, yeah, it could be worse. Now with foreign relations. Uh, Ecuador and Mexico have diplomatic ties and agreements. Most recently, in 2022, they have a migration dialogue addressing Ecuadorians traveling through Mexico to reach the United States, focusing more on safe and legal migration pathways. And last year, they had strengthened collaboration in the well-known Pacific Alliance, which Ecuador is working toward full membership. This alliance, we already talked about it in Australia, but it's a very important alliance on the Pacific, which Mexico and Ecuador are in that alliance. Mutual support, they shared positions in multilateral organizations like the United Nations, emphasizing sustainable development and human rights. And also, they have crisis management initiatives to combat organized crime, which is affecting both nations. It's almost the same problem here in Mexico as there in Ecuador. Recently, we had some videos showing how the organized crime is also strong in there. So it's they have these initiatives together to combat this problem. Now we trade and investment. Uh, they had economic partnerships in this century. They have trade agreements, like for example, they have an agreement to reduce tariffs on key exports, like pharmaceutical from Mexico or agricultural goods from Ecuador. Also, the already spoken Pacific Alliance, which Ecuador's integration into this bloc enhanced trade opportunities with Mexico. They have investment growth. Mexico invests are more in infrastructure and tourism sectors there in Ecuador, while Ecuador's major exports are cacao grains, agricultural goods, palm oil, seafood like tuna. That I think the most they export is tuna and or shrimps or seafood. Now, there's a challenge between these economic partnership because there's a persistent trade imbalance with Mexico exporting more than Ecuador, which could be seen as a problem in the balance between both partners. So yeah, this is a challenge that could be addressed and could have a solution with more trade from part of Ecuador. Now with the businesses we had and they also had. So of course the most big one of Mexico, Bimbo. Bimbo is also in Ecuador. The global bakery giant operates in Ecuador, offering a wide range of baked goods. They had expanded their distribution network to get to Ecuadorian markets. These leverage in international experience and logistic capabilities. From Ecuador, there's a company called Pernaca that is a major player in the food industry. It exports agricultural products, particularly shrimps and bananas, to Mexico. They have strengthened trade ties by addressing Mexican consumer demands for high quality Ecuadorian goods. We have also Cemex, which is from here, Monterrey. It's a leader in the cement industry. Cemex has invested in Ecuador's infrastructure projects, supporting construction and also urban development. And lastly, another business from Ecuador is called Pacific Fruits, which exports tropical fruits, especially bananas, to Mexican markets, bolstered by bilateral trade agreements that is market access.
My apologies because I don't have camera, but let's talk about social cooperation. So, culturally and socially, Mexico and Ecuador share traditions such as the Day of the Dead. So, with distinct visual elements, they have collaborative efforts that also include promoting Ecuadorian arts in Mexican museums and festivals, and educational exchange programs. Well, Mexico offers scholarships for Ecuadorian students, and both countries collaborate in technical and vocational training. Additionally, programs aim to improve treatment and ensure legal pathways for Ecuadorian migrants in Mexico. So, such as the shared cultural traditions that they have, in this case, as well as in Mexico and Ecuador, there is also the Day of the Dead, as I said already. Well, this is shares some similarities, like the date uh, and the prayers. Well, of course, visually it's not the same as Mexico because it's different culturing, but it's interesting how there can be similarities between Latin countries because not many countries share these traditions.
Well, here we used to have a video, but for questions of time, we're not going to put it, but you can click it on the presentation if you want, teacher.
So, talk about gastronomy and music. Well, let's talk about the music that Mexico has influenced in Ecuador. For example, the mariachi music is popular at cultural festivals and events in Ecuador, with many Ecuadorian artists incorporating elements of Mexican genres like ranchera into their repertories. And the influence that Ecuador has on us, Mexicans, well, they have traditional Andean music featuring instruments like the charango and pampius, is showcased at cultural festivals in Mexico, particularly in communities with strong Latin American ties. And talk about gastronomy, well, Mexican food, it's particularly tacos and tamales. That kind of food has gained popularity in Ecuadorian cities like Quito and Guayaquil. And talking about the Ecuadorian gastronomy that are in Mexico, they have dishes like encebollado, that is like a fish soup, and Ecuadorian chocolate have been introduced in gastronomic fairs. And talking about the educational part, well, they have university partnerships like several Mexican universities, such as the National Autonomous University of Mexico, is called or we know as UNAM. Well, they have collaborate with Ecuadorian institutions like San Francisco de Quito University. Well, these partnerships, often involve joint research and talking about academic exchange. They share their resources to exchange higher education in both countries. They try to to participate in all the kind of collaborations between these both universities. So, additionally, there are exchange programs allowing students from both countries to study abroad. For example, Mexican students may travel to Ecuador for immersion programs focused on Andean culture and languages, while Ecuadorian students gain insight into Mexican history, art, and language at Mexican universities such as the UNAM. So, talking about internal and external factors, well, both internal and external factors influence these bilateral relationships. Mexico aims to solidify its leadership in Latin America through initiatives like the Pacific Alliance, while Ecuador seeks economic diversification, and reduce dependence on oil exports. Talking about external pressures such as U.S. policies and organized crime also play a significant role. Despite this challenge, the two nations find alignment in regional integration and security efforts. So, can you please go to well, and then we're going to talk about the recent conflict that it was in this year. It was the embassy incident. Well, in 2024, a major diplomatic conflict arose when Ecuadorian authorities raided the Mexican embassy in Quito. Oh, this authority violating the Vienna Convention. The raid aimed to detain Jorge Glass, Ecuador's former vice president, who had been granted asylum there. Well, this incident led to Mexico severing diplomatic ties and filing a case against Ecuador at the International Court of Justice. Well, the event exposed the fragility of diplomatic protocols and drew international criticism, underscoring the importance of respecting international law. And then we will going well we are going to try to put the video, but
El asalto policial a la embajada mexicana en Ecuador provocó rechazo e indignación en varios países. Y también el asalto policial a la embajada mexicana en Ecuador provocó rechazo e indignación en varios países. Y también el reclamo de mexicanos frente a la embajada ecuatoriana en Ciudad de México.
well,
El
we're
asalto
going to
policial a
skip
la
the
embajada
video
mexicana
this
en
time,
Ecuador provocó
and we're going to put it on the description of the video that is related to the recent conflict between Mexico and Ecuador. That was the embassy incident of 2024. We're going to try to put it on the description, and well, we can conclude this conflict. Well, we have the incident that was the Ecuadorian laws enforced the entire Mexican embassy attempting to detain Glass. All this act was widely condemned as a breach of international law, specifically the principles of diplomatic inviolability. So, what was the immediate response? Well, Mexico severed diplomatic relations with Ecuador and initiated legal proceedings against the country in the International Court of Justice, claiming violations of diplomatic norms. And the border impact, well, the Organization of American States, that is OAS, strongly condemned Ecuador's action, while Mexico sought the international support to hold Ecuador accountable. Well, the International Court of Justice declined to issue provisional measures, but reaffirmed the importance of the Vienna Convention. What was the consequences? Well, the first one was the diplomatic fallout. The incident strained relations with both countries, accusing each other of breaching international norms. The second one was the international attention. The case highlighted the fragility of diplomatic protocols in politically sensitive situations. And talking about domestic implications in Ecuador, that was for 3 points and the three consequences. That is the rest of an asylum situation revealing depths about a glass political influence and corruption in the country. So this event marks a significant low point in Mexico-Ecuador relations, emphasizing the need for a robust adherence to diplomatic agreements to avoid further escalations. So, for the regional implications, also now underline the importance of multilateral dialogue in resolving such conflicts. Okay, it's important to note that the embassies on the other countries are a part of the country of Maine. In this case, uh, after that, that is of Ecuadorian floor, the embassy belongs to Mexico. So, as a conclusion, we can say that the Mexico-Ecuador relations has largely been positive, with a significant impacts on trade, culture, and education. However, the recent diplomatic conflict marked a low point. Well, despite this, we must focus on the cultural and social ties that unite these nations. Well, Latin American countries share deep connections and are stronger as allies. Mexico should consider reopening diplomatic channels and, well, this to strengthen regional unity, which benefits everyone more than conflict ever could. So that was all for our part. Thank you for see the video.